Before the storm, the year is 632 CE, and this unassuming structure in the desert, this is the Kaaba. It's hard to believe, but this place would become the beating heart of an empire unlike any other. So how did we get here? To understand, we need to rewind the clock. Imagine a world dominated by these titans, the Byzantine Empire, with their glittering capital Constantinople, their legacy echoing the might of Rome, and to the east, their rivals, the Sasanian Empire, Persian kings, master builders, their armies feared from the sands of Arabia to the borders of India. For decades, their history had been written in clashing swords and clinking gold. Just a few years ago, at the Battle of Nineveh, they nearly tore each other apart. A victory for the Byzantines, but at what cost? But empires have a way of crumbling from within. Look closer. Unrest brews in the Byzantine provinces. Their treasury drained, and the Persians, stretching from Egypt to the edges of India, face rebellions and unrest of their own. The endless wars have left them vulnerable, but far away, overlooked, almost forgotten in the vast Arabian desert. Something new was emerging. Mecca. Not an empire, not a kingdom, but a city built on trade. A crossroads where caravans laden with silks and spices, perfumes and gold traversed the desert. A melting pot of cultures and languages, all chasing after fortunes in the desert heat. This was a place of opportunity, of endless possibilities. But few could have predicted the kind of change it would unleash upon the world. Little did anyone suspect what was coming. Before it became a global faith, the Kaaba was already a sacred place. But things were different. People came from across Arabia, drawn by ancient rituals, offering prayers to a multitude of gods. Idols stood within the Kaaba's shadow. Spirits and deities were part of everyday life. Some even searched for answers in the stars, seeking guidance in the vast desert sky. This was Arabia, a land brimming with spiritual traditions. But that was all about to change. Whispers began to travel on the winds. A new story was unfolding. They spoke of a man of unwavering conviction who dared to challenge the old ways. He spoke of a single, all-powerful God, and his words resonated like thunder through the hearts of those seeking something more. Even as a young man, Muhammad was different. Known for his honesty and fairness, people called him Al-Sadiq, the trustworthy. In a city driven by trade and sometimes shadowed by deceit, his integrity stood out. Merchants sought him out, entrusting him with their most prized possessions. Those in conflict came to him hoping for his wisdom to guide them. This was the man destined to change the world. But his greatest journey was yet to come. Mecca was a city of contrasts, bustling marketplaces, but also poverty and hardship. While some enjoyed unimaginable wealth, others struggled just to survive. This inequality weighed heavily on Muhammad's heart. He retreated from the noise and the injustice, seeking solace in the tranquility of the barren mountains, seeking answers in the silence of a cave called Hira. Alone in the darkness, Muhammad prayed and reflected. The world outside faded away until there was nothing but silence. Then, a blinding light filled the cave. The angel Gabriel appeared before him. The divine message was revealed. These words, the word of God, would become the Quran, the foundation of Islam. Muhammad was shaken to his core by the revelations. His closest companion, his wife Khadija, saw his struggle, and she believed. Her support gave him strength. Others saw something extraordinary in him too. Abu Bakr, a respected merchant known for his wisdom, found truth in the Quran's words. A small community formed, bound by faith, each taking a daring leap into the unknown. But the ground was shifting beneath their feet. Would their newfound strength be enough? They found strength in unity, gathering in secret to pray and find comfort. Bonds were forged, meals were shared, the needy were cared for. It wasn't just about religion, it was about building a support system, a family united by something powerful and new. But shadows were gathering, and challenges lay ahead. The rejection of the old gods wasn't just a religious debate, it threatened the entire fabric of Meccan society. For generations, tribal leaders held power, but Islam preached equality for all, a radical idea that could topple the old order. Mecca's wealth depended on pilgrims worshipping the idols. What would happen if those idols were abandoned? Merchants trembled. Would their fortunes vanish? Could their city survive? Undeterred, they traveled beyond Mecca's walls. The message spread. Reactions varied. Some met them with hostility, some with curiosity. In small gatherings, in whispered conversations, the seed of a new era was planted, spreading like wildflowers in the desert wind. But back in Mecca, the stakes were rising. Persecution intensified. Families were divided. Friends turned into enemies. Muslims endured hardship, helping those who were ostracized and abused for their new faith. A storm was brewing, and a decision had to be made. An invitation arrived from the north, a call for help from the city of Yathrib, later known as Medina. It offered refuge, a place to build a new society founded on Islamic values. Leaving Mecca meant leaving behind their homes, their families, their entire lives. It was a heart-wrenching farewell, but they left under the cloak of darkness, their faces etched with both grief and determination. As dawn broke on the desert, their caravan moved slowly toward the rising sun, a symbol of new hope, a new beginning, a new chapter in history. Exhausted but relieved, the Muslims arrived in Medina, welcomed with open arms by its people. It seemed a new era had begun, but refuge didn't mean safety. Medina's tribes were at odds. They saw in Muhammad not just a prophet, but a mediator, a leader who could unite them. Islam offered hope, but even here, it was intertwined with the complexities of politics and power. Mecca's rulers were furious. This new community it challenged their authority. If allowed to flourish, it could inspire others to break away. Whispers of dissent were one thing, but a rival power growing stronger each day, that was a threat they couldn't ignore. In Medina, though, something truly extraordinary was taking shape. Under Muhammad's leadership, a groundbreaking agreement was forged, the Constitution of Medina. This wasn't just a set of laws, it was a blueprint for a just society. Tribes once at odds now pledged to settle their disputes peacefully. Religious freedom was guaranteed, with Jews and other groups protected. Imagine that, a multi-faith society thriving over 1400 years ago. The Masjid al-Nabawi, the Prophet's Mosque. It wasn't built with armies of laborers, but with hands eager to create a space for this new community. Men and women, young and old, everyone worked together, but it wasn't just for prayer. Within these walls, friendships were made, knowledge was exchanged, and hope flourished. This was a place of warmth, a testament to the unity they'd achieved. But Mecca struck back. With economic pressure, trade routes were diverted, essential goods grew scarce, fear gripped the marketplace. Then came news from beyond the city walls, raiding parties, skirmishes. Mecca wasn't playing games anymore. The message was clear: embrace Islam and pay the price. At the wells of Badr, the Muslims stood ready to defend their new home. Outnumbered, outmatched, the Meccan army loomed like a desert storm on the horizon. In the face of such overwhelming odds, fear gripped their hearts. The night before battle was filled with a tension you could almost taste. But their unity was unyielding, their faith a shield against the darkness. Muhammad, in this moment of immense pressure, prayed for guidance, not for victory. He sought wisdom in the silence. But would it be enough? As the sun rose, the clash came. A chaotic struggle ensued, sand swirling with the dust of battle. They fought not with bloodlust, but with the conviction of those defending everything they held dear. The Muslims were victorious. Badr, a turning point, a triumph against all odds. But the taste of victory was bittersweet. The cost etched in the somber faces of those who had seen comrades fall. Victory. But at what cost? Badr bought the Muslims time. Captured swords were reforged, supplies replenished, but the respite was short-lived. An uneasy silence hung over Medina. The Meccans wouldn't forgive this humiliation, and retribution loomed on the horizon. The Meccans were coming, thirsty for vengeance. At Mount Uhud, the Muslims faced an agonizing choice: stay within Medina's walls and fight defensively, or trust in God's protection and meet their enemy in the open. Badr had proven God was on their side. But could they rely on a miracle twice? Fear clashed with faith. Unity strained under the weight of uncertainty. They chose to fight. Their archers, positioned high on a hill, rained arrows down upon the advancing Meccans. The enemy faltered, their lines breaking. Victory seemed within grasp. But a moment of miscalculation, a lapse in discipline, changed everything. Their defenses crumbled, the battle line shattered, and the tide turned against them with brutal swiftness. This was more than a military setback. This was loss that cut deep, piercing the very heart of their community. As they tended their wounds and buried their dead, the air grew thick with questions. Whispers turned into accusations. Was this the path God intended? Were their sacrifices in vain? Hope mingled with despair, their unity. It had survived the battle, but at what cost? Mecca sensed weakness. Their victory at Uhud emboldened them, and now they were preparing for the final blow. But Medina had learned. The prophet's words rang true. True believers are those whose hearts tremble when God is mentioned, whose faith increases when his verses are recited. They would not break. Defiance thrummed in their hearts. They dug trenches, reinforced their defenses, prepared to fight street by street if needed. Every able body, young or old, joined the effort. And as Muhammad surveyed their preparations, he knew that the true test of their faith was yet to come. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon. Word reached Medina. Mecca was on the march, an army unlike any they'd faced before. 10,000 strong. The sight that greeted the defenders was terrifying. Wave after wave of Meccan soldiers. Inside Medina, the mood was grim, but not broken. Families huddled in homes close to the city walls, bracelets and earrings donated melted down to forge weapons. Children carried water to the defenders, even as fear gnawed at their bellies. Jewish allies stood shoulder to shoulder with Muslims, reinforcing the walls. The siege of Medina, a testament to the city's unyielding spirit. Despite facing overwhelming odds, that remarkable pact forged years before, that vision of a multi-faith, just society held strong. It wasn't just the trench that shielded them, it was something much deeper. It was unity, faith, and hope. And in the face of a storm meant to shatter them, that hope refused to die. An eerie silence descends upon the battlefield, where just days before thousands clashed in a desperate struggle. Now only the wind remains, abandoned tents whipped by rain, broken weapons scattered across the soaked ground. The siege of Medina had been broken. A ferocious storm ripping through the Meccan camp had played its part. Tents collapsed, supplies ruined, morale shattered. But it wasn't just the weather the Medinan defenses held strong. Whispers of dissent had grown within the Meccan ranks. Their resolve crumbled. But the story doesn't end there. Emboldened by their resilience, the Muslims pushed outward. Their target, the fortress of Khaybar, a seemingly impregnable stronghold long considered untouchable. The defenders mocked their efforts, their insults echoing from the high walls. Catapults launched their fiery payloads while men scrambled up makeshift ladders, risking everything for a taste of victory. Khaybar fell. This stunning victory sent shockwaves through Arabia, a clear message. The Muslims were not to be underestimated. The year is 628 CE. Muhammad set out from Medina not as a warrior but as a pilgrim. With him, thousands of followers clad in the simple white garments of Ihram. Their destination, Mecca. Their purpose to perform Hajj, a peaceful pilgrimage to the holiest site in Islam. It was a bold move, a testament to their faith. As they approached the outskirts of Mecca, the air crackled with anticipation. Then, hostility. Meccan soldiers stood in their path. The drums of war beat. But this was a confrontation of a different kind. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah. On the surface, it seemed like a setback. The Muslims wouldn't enter Mecca that year. Disappointment hung heavy in the air. But this treaty held a secret weapon. Muslims could return the following year, and it granted them the right to preach their faith freely across Arabia. A seed had been planted. Across the Arabian Peninsula, hearts and minds were changing. The message of Islam, of one God, of unity and compassion, took root. Medina, bolstered by newcomers, grew into a beacon of hope, a magnet for those yearning for change. The treaty had unlocked the future. No longer could the faith be contained. 2 years later, Muhammad returned to Mecca. His arrival, though, was different. Now he commanded an army, 10,000 strong, banners fluttering in the desert wind. There was no cheering as they marched, just silence, faces etched with grim determination. Their return was not about conquest. This was the city where it had all begun, the birthplace of their faith. As they entered the sacred space of the Kaaba, the moment was almost surreal. Idols toppled, centuries of tradition falling away like dust, the old ways vanquished. Alone in the heart of the Kaaba stood Muhammad. What do you think about this turn of events? Could things have turned out differently? How much did luck play a role in Medina's victory? Let me know in the comments. Hit like if you enjoyed the video and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about how faith changed the world. Mecca had fallen. Whispers across the deserts turned to shockwaves in distant palaces. Emperors and kings, from Constantinople to Ctesiphon, received the news with disbelief. That backwater town, that desert outpost, had become the heart of a new power. A power that dared to challenge the very foundations of their world. In the streets of Mecca, the old ways crumbled. Idols were cast aside, markets transformed, a new order taking hold. Some clung to the past, their traditions, their livelihoods disrupted. Others embraced this change, finding solace and hope in the Quran's message. Islam was taking root, but its tendrils were already reaching far beyond Mecca's walls. This was just the beginning. The Byzantine Empire, a superpower stretching from the Balkans to Egypt. Emperor Heraclius, veteran of countless wars, seemed invincible, but an invisible enemy stalked the land. Plague ravaged cities, fear gripped the streets. The empire weakened was ripe for the taking. But by whom? Could these Arabian upstarts pose a real threat to the mightiest power in the world? The seeds of change, planted in the deserts of Arabia, now carried by the wind. Raids on the fringes of mighty empires, small skirmishes testing the defenses. The old world wouldn't fall easily, but cracks were appearing in its foundations, and a new power, fueled by faith and ambition, was ready to exploit them. In 632 AD, the world of Islam changed forever. Prophet Muhammad was gone. Grief echoed through Medina, tears mingled with prayers. Could their fledgling community, their fledgling faith, survive without their leader? A successor was chosen, Abu Bakr, a man of deep faith and even deeper wisdom. The challenges he faced were immense. Could Islam's message really transcend empires? Could the desert faith unite the world? What followed was astonishing. In just a few decades, Islam exploded outward, a whirlwind of conquests challenging the very notion of what an empire could be. In Persia, the Sasanian dynasty crumbled. In Syria and Egypt, Byzantine legions fell before a seemingly unstoppable force. Ancient cultures, ancient traditions, swept away by the tide of change. This wasn't just a change of rulers, it was the birth of a new world order. From the Atlantic to the Indus River, a vast Islamic Caliphate was forged, an empire built on faith. But military strength doesn't fully explain its meteoric rise. Why did it spread so quickly? Why would people willingly abandon the old ways, embrace a new faith? A new culture? The answers are more complex than you might think. But that's a story for our next chapter. Thanks for watching. What surprised you most about the rise of this early Islamic empire? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to understand this crucial period of history in even greater depth, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more. Those mighty empires, Persia, Byzantium, gone, conquered. It happened fast, but how? How did those desert warriors achieve the unthinkable? Could they really challenge the established order, build an empire that spanned continents? Well, the story is more complex than you might think. Even in Medina, the heart of this new Islamic empire, things were changing. The city was swelling. Travelers and merchants, scholars and refugees poured in, bringing with them the sights, sounds, and ideas of distant lands. The world was shrinking. Even for those who'd embraced Islam from the start, this new reality was full of challenges. A delicate balance of holding on to their faith while adapting to an ever-expanding world. But in those conquered lands, beyond the familiar deserts of Arabia, what was life like for those living under the new Caliphate? What did this new world order mean for them? The early Islamic rulers understood they couldn't convert everyone overnight. They created a system for their new subjects, the dhimmi, Non-Muslims like Christians and Jews were granted protection, allowed to practice their religions. Markets thrived with merchants from different faiths. Justice was promised, often delivered. But make no mistake, this wasn't a perfect system. The dhimmis faced restrictions, special taxes, rules about clothing, even curfews. Tolerated? Yes. But truly equal? No. Across the vast Caliphate, a new order was taking shape. The conquerors established their rule. Tax systems adapted to new lands, laws blending Islamic principles with local customs. Coins were minted, bearing new symbols of power, proclaiming a new era. But conquering is one thing. Ruling? That requires a different set of skills. In Baghdad, the House of Wisdom became a symbol of this new era. A grand library, but more than that, a meeting point for the world's greatest minds. Within its walls, ancient Greek texts on philosophy, mathematics, and medicine were translated, studied, debated. Persian astronomy was refined, its wisdom blended with new discoveries, fueling innovation across the Islamic world. We call this period the Golden Age of Islam. But here's a question. What really makes a golden age? Progress for some doesn't erase the losses faced by others, right? Across the conquered territories, the story varied. In villages, new mosques arose, sometimes built by the sweat and toil of those who'd never chosen this faith. Resentment simmered, resistance flickered. Ancient temples stood abandoned, symbols of shattered beliefs and forgotten gods. The pact of tolerance often faltered in the face of human prejudice. The conquests had reshaped the world in ways no one could have predicted. Cultures blended, ideas flowed across borders. Even the victors found themselves transformed. A new world was being forged, a complex tapestry woven from the threads of conquered and conqueror alike. Was it a better world? More prosperous? As always, history leaves us with difficult questions and no easy answers. So tell me, what do you think? Could the rise of the Caliphate been stopped? Were these conquests a net positive or negative for the world? Hit the like button if you found this video insightful. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. And subscribe to my channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world.